views expressed on this program are not those of IntellectualRadio.com, its subsidiaries, or sponsors. Encouraging, educating, and empowering you into action. This is Warriors Talk with your host, Lady ReShell.
Hello. Welcome to Warriors Talk with author and founder Lady ReShell, where we move away from awareness towards action. It is Testimonial Monday, and our topic for today is a caregiver's perspective. We are live on Intellectual Radio. We just heard from the Drive at 5 with Roman. Keep it locked right here on Intellectual Radio and allow us to feed. On the last episode of Warriors Talk, I talked about how to identify a narcissist. Go over to YouTube and type in Intellectual Radio and stay connected. The quote of the day is, "The closest thing to being cared for is to care for someone else." We are grateful for our sponsor. We have Pastor Michael Richardson with the Emmanuel Church-of-God-in-Christ, who has a special message for us.
Greetings, I am Pastor Michael Richardson.
And I am First Lady Anastasia Richardson from the Emmanuel Church-of-God-in-Christ. We're located at 3058 West Van Buren in Chicago, Illinois. We are building upon a solid foundation.
And we're inviting you to join us every Sunday morning on Facebook Live at EmanuelC.O.G.I.C at 10:15 Central Standard Time. And you can also view our videos on our YouTube channel at EmanuelC.O.G.I.C-MR. Once again, this is Pastor Michael Richardson
and First Lady Anastasia Richardson. And we're from the Emmanuel Church of God in Christ. We are building upon a solid foundation.
Here are your trending topics for today. According to CNN, the Biden administration is set to unveil new details and announcements on Monday on Paxlovid, the Pfizer antiviral team pill, according to a White House official. The administration has plans underway to increase the availability and uptake of the COVID-19 antiviral drug. The White House COVID-19 response coordinator, Dr. Jha, announced on Twitter this weekend. Over the next week, you will hear a lot more about what the Biden administration is doing and how they're going to make PACs widely available and easy accessible to all Americans. The administration is working on establishing more places where the PACs will be available, including more test to treat sites. The administration nationwide test to treat initiative involves the one-stop sites for people who are tested for COVID-19. You are able to get a free antiviral medication on the spot. Those are your trending topics for today. If you are joining me on any form of social media, please like the show, share the show, invite someone else in on the show that may benefit from this valuable information. My special guest today is a retired, after 38 years, actually from the federal government. She is a speaker, author, a wedding strategist, over 50s model, and a relationship coach. Welcome to Warriors Talk, Brenda Tucker-Jeffries. Hello, Brenda.
Hello, Lady ReShell. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Yes, I'm excited. I'm excited to hear your journey. And it seemed like you already got a lot going on outside of this. I'm like, oh my goodness. Relationship and you're a model. That's a lot. I know with weddings, that's got to be a lot too, a lot to deal with.
Well, when you get to be 68, there's a lot of baggage there. Yes.
Oh God, you do not look 68. Wow.
Thank you very much.
Oh wow, I would have never guessed that. Wow. Well, all right then. So we're going to be talking about a caregiver's perspective. I feel like we always talk about I don't want to say like the patient side of it. We always give you the patient's perspective, and we really haven't focused on the caregiver's perspective to let you know what they go through, what they focus on, and what it takes for them to take care of someone who's ill or have some type of long-term disability. So Brenda is going to share her perspective on it. So my question is, I wanted to make sure that everybody even know what a caregiver is, because there's different types of caregivers, right? Everybody always, we know the one where they call it an informal caregiver, where either your spouse, your child, or maybe a parent to that person, and you're taking care of them. You're not getting paid, right? You're doing it for free, or I would say you're volunteering, doing it for free. You're not getting paid. So that's what they call an informal caregiver. And then you have the formal caregivers where they are getting paid. They might come to the house, for a couple of hours a day, or you may go to like a day facilities for like assisted living or something, to where they will help take care of them. And those are the individuals that get paid for it. So, but today we're going to focus on the informal one / volunteer, as I would put it, because those are the ones who are really doing it out of the goodness of their hearts. That's what I would say. So, Brenda, how did you actually find yourself in a situation to where you even had to be a caregiver to someone?
Well, it all came about because my mother actually got ill. She had been ill for quite a while and handling it herself because she was always an independent individual. And so when I began taking her for doctor's appointments, we went from the primary care doctor to specialist, and things never got any better. And eventually I had to move her from her apartment where she was living independently into my home with me and my husband. And before that, my husband said to me, you can move your mother in here, don't you? And I said, yes, I know that. Thank you very much. So it got to that point where she could no longer live independently, and we moved her into my house. And basically that's when I became the caregiver, the major caregiver for her.
Did she fight it at all? Like, was she reluctant to do it? Because we know that, sometimes they can be strong and they're like, no, I got it. And then, you have to like kind of strong arm and be like, no, let's go.
She didn't fight it, but only because she had already fought moving from the apartment that she loved, which was like 30 miles away from me, into an apartment that was closer to me when I realized that she was sick. So she had fought me on that tooth and nail, but I had to do it because I knew that she could no longer live that far away. And then if something happened, it would take me too long to get to her. So by the time she got really ill, that fight was over with.
Wow. Okay. So, and your mom was dealing with cancer.
She actually was dealing with cancer. We found out in the spring of 2018. And at the same time, dementia, we found out.
Oh, wow. So that's two big major things. I mean, taking care of someone with cancer is just one thing, but dementia, that's a whole nother, it's a whole nother set of skills that you really need in order to take care of a person with that. That's a lot on your hands.
Yes. And those weren't skills that I had or really had been acquainted with anyone that I knew of that had gone through it. So it was quite a deal, but I had a support team that was helping me. Luckily, I was retired and had that time to devote to taking care of my mom after moving her into my home. My husband was my number one support person, and there were many others, like my sister helped by moving in with us. My cousins helped by preparing me for what was to come, because they had lost parents to cancer. They knew what I was about to go through, and they helped prepare me so that I would not be like a deer caught in the headlights, that I would be able to do what was necessary for me to do.
So I like that you had someone that kind of to shed some light on what was going on, because a lot of times when caregivers go into it, the informal caregivers, they don't have that. So a lot of times they're doing things, they may make mistakes, and they're really just learning hands-on how to do something. So I think that it's important that if you are in that role and you know somebody else that's taking on that role, to just step in there and, give them a little advice and try to help them and guide them along the way, because it makes it smoother for them and the person that they taking care of.
Definitely, I agree.
And Mylea Simone says a caregiver role is so important. They deserve much appreciation for all they do. She said, thank you for sharing your story.
You're welcome. I really appreciate it.
I totally agree with that. That a lot of times we don't really give caregivers, their just due. We just sometimes we take for granted that, oh yeah, they're there. They're supposed to be there. That's what they're supposed to do. And a lot of times we don't really highlight what they do, because a lot of times they do so much. And like you said, you were retired, but some people have to quit their jobs. Some people have to cut their hours, and they're
Yes.
taking on a whole new dimension of work that is physical, mental, like taxing on your body. Lisa says, hey family. She says, good to see you. Hey Lisa.
Hey, Lisa.
So, a lot of people are not prepared, Brenda. They're not prepared for it. Do you recommend, if you don't have any experience at it, maybe seeking out some type of class or some type of group that would be able to like guide you along the way?
I do. I happen to be lucky enough to have the primary care physician who referred us to all of the specialists that my mom had to have. And they were very empathetic to my situation. All of them had great bedside manners where they sat me down and they told me in a most appropriate way that they knew I could handle it, what was about to happen, that it was only going to get worse, that she was too weak for chemo. We tried it. It lasted a week and she couldn't take it any longer. So all of them were my support. The doctors, the nurses, the hospice team, when we got to that point, and even after she passed, the other hospice team that worked with me to try and help me get it together.
Wow.
So if you know of anyone that's able to help you, I would suggest that you do allow them to do that, because there's so many things that are going on within your mind about what it is you need to do, and you're doing everything possible that you can do. And it'll come to a point in time where, like with my mom, she was told that she needed to stop smoking. She just could not do it. I mean, she had smoked all my life, all her life. And so the one thing that she asked me to do that I just could not do was give her a cigarette. So one of my cousins came over one day and she asked him to do that. And he came and asked me, was it okay? Because that was the only thing she wanted. She didn't want food. She didn't want drink. She didn't want nothing but a cigarette. So I said, okay, just go ahead and do it, because I cannot do it. I hate cigarettes. There are no cigarettes. There are no ashtrays in my house anywhere. So the team that you have to work with is the one that will help you get through it.
Yeah, you made a good point. You can't be afraid to ask for help, because you need that time. Sometimes you need time for yourself. And I think some people may feel like they may feel guilty because they're taking care of this person. They feel like, I don't want to ask anybody else for help because I'm the one that's supposed to be doing it. So they may feel guilty, like maybe they letting a person down because they're, letting people help them so that they can get a break.
You shouldn't feel that way, because first of all, if that person that you're caring for could tell you how much they appreciate you being able to do that for them, they would. Some of them are so sick, they can't tell you that. I mean, a person that has dementia can't tell you that. But luckily, my mother did tell me that before she transitioned. And I want everyone to know that this is the best gift that you could possibly give to a loved one. Something that they appreciate more than you giving them a car, a house, or winning the lottery or whatever. You're being willing to and able to take care of them in their time of need when they can't take care of themselves. There's nothing better than that. It's a rewarding job. It's a very hard job. And it takes you a lot to get through it. But that support team is what's going to help you get through it.
Yeah, so don't be afraid to ask for help. I think back to my mom. She was the caregiver for my sister that had cancer and that passed away, and then my dad that had cancer and passed away. Like at 2 separate times. And I'm just like, I don't know how she did it. I've never seen her complain, fuss, or anything like that. Like, I've never seen her, unless she did it in her own private time. I never seen her complain. I never saw, a frown on her face. She always did it. Like, so you have to have some type of, it's a special type of person that can do that type of thing, and not feel resentment towards that person. It's like, I heard this story that this lady, she was taking care of her mom, taking care of her for like 20 years. And she was tired. She was telling everybody, I'm tired. This is a lot. Do you know she burned the house down with her and her mother in it?
Oh my Lord. Oh,
She
Jesus.
was just like, I can't do this no more. And she didn't want to leave the mother. She didn't want nobody else to, I guess, to have to take care of her. So she just burned the house down with both of them in it. I was like, oh my goodness.
That is so sad.
That is really sad.
So sad.
Like, I'm thinking, like, where was her help? Where was the, maybe she
Right.
didn't have any help, no relief.
Maybe not, because I think the help that I got from outside of my family actually came through the health plan that my mother was on. The hospice team came from that health plan, and everything that we needed, we got. There was the only time I had a problem getting anything was when she was released from the nursing home, and she needed a special bench, a shower bench, because the cancer would not allow her to sit on a regular bench. So it had to be a special bench. So I'm looking all over for this bench, and finally I find it. I order it from this one particular place, and it disappears for whatever reason. So I have to keep bugging them to get the bench. So I finally got the bench, and they also had some classes but this was after my mother had passed, classes for individuals that had lost a mother or father or a close relative. And those classes that lasted for about 8 weeks. Started out with 8 women that were in that class, and it went down to 4, and I was one of the 4. Those classes actually helped me get through each and every day, because I was lost. I only had one parent to begin with all my life, and then I didn't have any. So going to that class actually helped me cope and made me stronger than I even thought I was, because they gave you some tools and resources, and you were able to contact them 24/7, even before you were going back to the next meeting. So I have to give it up for that healthcare system, because without it, I probably would not have made it.
I would say, if you're paying this healthcare every month, we should be trying to, utilize it for everything that you can get out of it. Sometimes we just don't know that, there's things that we can use because we don't ask questions, or they're not forthcoming with the information. Like certain things that, we supposed to get if you have like a surgery, or if you go through something. There's certain things that you're supposed to get, physical therapy, but sometimes the patients are like an assembly line. So sometimes they may forget to tell you these things. So I think it's important to attend classes and support groups like that, so that, you can identify with somebody else who's going through, and, find out information that you may not get from the doctor's office.
Yes, it's so helpful.
Lisa said, wow, that's sad. I think she was talking about the lady that burned the house down. She said she believed that she might have been overwhelmed. And I believe she was overwhelmed, because sometimes she may have felt like, okay, there's no outlet. If I don't take care of her, ain't nobody else is going to take care of her. So guess what? Whew, that's a bad feeling.
It's too much. Right.
It really is. According to statistics, it talks about the impact of a person that's providing care for someone else. And Brenda, what they said was they will have elevated levels of depression and anxiety. Their own health would be worse off. They, their immune system will be compromised. And one of the things, Brenda, that I found that was alarming is said that people, caregivers, their lifespan is actually shortened 4 to 8 years when they're taking care of someone else.
Hmm. Wow, that's major.
Yeah.
Well, luckily, I don't think I went through, well, of course, I went through depression. I went through being angry at the world for taking my mother, because I definitely was not ready for that. I thought she would come through, and she was a warrior. She fought as long as she could fight. Depression, I don't think I had depression. I really don't think. I think I was just in shock for so long until I met up with this support group. And then we talked about all the things that all the ladies in the group were going through and were sharing with one another, that somehow I think I probably skipped over that with their help. So I didn't experience those things. I didn't really have the anxiety, because there were so many other things that I had to deal with. I had to take care of my mother's business. I'm the oldest of 3 kids. So there were a lot of things that I needed to do, and I needed to be focused and conscious to do that. So luckily, I didn't experience those things, and hopefully it won't shorten my life.
You didn't have time. You didn't have time to be depressed.
No.
You didn't. You did not. Wow. So here are some positive things about caregiving. So if you're taking care of someone, there are some positive things that come out of that. And Brenda, you already talked about one of them, which is the sense of having that fulfillment of taking care of your loved one, and them loving you for doing it, for taking the time out to do it. It talked about feeling useful and needed by somebody, or learning something about that person maybe you didn't know, because now y'all bonding. It's that bonding time, because a lot of time it's just you and that person. So
Right.
those are some of the rewarding things that you get from taking care of your loved one.
I agree.
It can be rewarding. I think sometimes people just, you're looking at the day to day, what you have to do day to day, versus, okay, let me pump my brakes and take a minute because this person is sick. And I'm sure if they wasn't sick and they was well, they'll be doing their own thing. So the fact that they need me and they need me to be here to do this, you just sometimes you have to take that time, like take a moment to take it all in. And that's why I said with my mom, I don't know what she was going through to where she had to take care of them back to back. I could just remember giving her a break one day, just one day, and she was taking care of them around the clock all the time, like taking them to the doctor's appointments, everything. And she has diabetes herself, but the good thing is she never let her health go down. She made sure she was going to her doctor's appointments and doing all of those things. But I think as family members, we could have stepped up more. We could have helped out, we could have stepped up and said, hey, okay, on the weekends, since you have her during the week, somebody will come over here on the weekends. One person takes Saturday, one person takes Sunday, or anything, just to give her a break. But we really did not. We didn't. That was just one day that I helped.
Well,
so,
I understand what you're saying, but she probably didn't want to ask for the help. She probably felt that was her responsibility. And until you volunteered the help, she was going to do it all herself. Luckily, it didn't negatively affect her health or her ability to take care of herself. But I know a lot of people feel that way. So anytime that you can volunteer some time to do anything, pick up a prescription, make a telephone call, possibly go, if they need you to go grocery shopping, or trust you with a card to go pick up some money that they may need for whatever you feel comfortable volunteering, it's a big help.
Lisa said, And that's true. Lisa said one of the positive things is the satisfaction of knowing that they are getting the proper care, love, and attention. It also elevates your strength during a tough time, knowing someone else is depending on you. And that's
Correct,
true.
Lisa. Yep.
That's true. I know a lot of people, we have heard some horror stories, Brenda, about, when you put your family member in the nursing homes for, or the assisted living places for them to take care of. We've heard some horror stories about that. And like the last thing you want is to have this person that you love in this place and being mistreated.
True.
And then they sitting there like they can't do anything for themselves. And, it's like, we've seen the horror stories. We've seen where they had like bed sores on them, so they wasn't moving them or changing them or doing anything. Sometimes they was touching them sexually. Like, there have been some horror stories. So I would say if you have the energy, you have the love in your heart, then I would say take care of that person. If you have a support system, y'all just work together, work around the clock.
True. I mean, especially if it's your parent or someone that's really close to you that's taking care of you during your lifetime, it's time to reciprocate, really. My mom was in a nursing home twice, and I didn't have a bad feeling about her being there because I knew she needed to be there in order to get well enough to come home. And I went every day, and I went at different times of the day so that I could just show up. They didn't know when I was coming, and I didn't care if anybody else was coming. So the last time that she was there, I told them that the next day I was taking her home. And it wasn't because I felt they were doing anything wrong or that she had bed sores or anything like that. It was just that I knew that is not where she wanted to be. She wanted to be at home no matter what was going to happen. So I brought her home. So I had a positive experience with the nursing homes, not a negative one. But while I was there visiting her, I did see some things like people who never got visitors. I don't care what time of day I came, they never had anyone come see them. Or people whose clothes were disappearing because other patients, because we're on the dementia ward, other patients were leaving their rooms, coming into anybody's room and taking stuff that didn't belong to them. I mean, that first week that my mom was there, I brought clothes. They were supposed to wash the clothes. They told me. When I came back to look at the clothes, they weren't hers. They were somebody else. So nursing homes, there are bad things that happen in them. Yes, there are. So if you can keep your loved one out of one, I would recommend you do that. But if not, just know that you're doing all that you possibly can. If you have to work and there's only one salary in the house, you got to go to work, and there's no one else to take care of them, keep looking until you find one that's right for you. And a lot of times that's up to the healthcare, that you have, because they'll let you know which ones they're willing to pay for. And they're not cheap. And you can only stay there for a certain amount of days anyway. So you got a lot of decisions that you have to make.
Lisa says showing up is important. You have to remind the staff that you love your loved one, that your loved one is loved.
Right.
And I notice when they see you coming, when they know that you come, they make sure they do what they have to do because they know you coming up there. So
yeah.
I've seen that happen. They know who gets the visitors and who don't. But that's something for other people who want to do like some good, who want to like do some outreach and stuff. You can go to the nursing home and visit somebody and sit with them, read to them. Those who ask the front desk who don't have visitors, who that don't get visitors, and and go and see them.
That would be nice. It really would, because I really feel sorry for some of the men and the women that I saw there, and if you haven't been to one, it's an eye opener, because it's not just for people that are
Right.
seniors and older. There are some young people in there. I mean, young in their 20s, their 30s, because they've been in car accidents or whatever. And it's just it's hard to see. It truly is. But that's a place where people can go to be rehabilitated so they can come home. And that's the only reason that my mom was there. Other than that, she wouldn't have been there. But she had to be there twice in order to get well enough to come home.
We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about how you can get over burnout, because we do know that a lot of caregivers, they suffer from burnout. I want to talk about my sponsor, who is Allstate with Paula Kelly. And Paula Kelly is also a cancer survivor. And she has been my sponsor for about 3 or 4 years now. It's been a while. So I'm excited for her. She's actually located at 327 East Glenwood Lansing Road in Glenwood, Illinois. You can contact her for a quote at 708-758-3300. And please make sure you tell her that Warriors Talk sent you. She is a Black-owned agency. She has quality insurance. And trust me, she's going to give you the best deal. So make sure you let her know that I sent you. All right, I have shouted out my sponsor. So we are live on Intellectual Radio, and I'm talking to Brenda Tucker-Jeffries, and she is a caregiver, and she's given us her perspective. And she talked about her mom having cancer and dementia, and how she just scooped in there and she went to bat for her mom. Now, Brenda, we know that individuals do get burnt out when it comes to just caring for your loved one, just doing the right thing that you feel in your heart to do. What are some ways that you feel that individuals can avoid being burnout? I know we talked about the support.
Yes. Actually taking some time out, even if it's just to go outside and walk around the block. You need to find a way to get some me time, to get some peace. And if you have that person that you love living with you and they're requiring 24/7 care, you have to make all of these arrangements with the hospice team. You have to try and feed them, bathe them, manage their medication. You don't barely even have time enough to take a bath or a shower. You just fall out at the end of the day. So you have to figure out some way to give yourself a break.
I totally agree. It said the statistics said at least try to get away for like 2 hours. Make sure you carve that time out and make it consistent. And it's not just for you, but it's for them too, because sometimes they need a break from you. Like, get that time so when you could come back to them refreshed. You don't have an attitude. You're refreshed and you're able to give them the level of care that they need, because you have taken care of yourself. So self-care is so important when it comes to caregiving, because you want to be at the top of your game when you're taking care of somebody. You don't want your health to go down in the process of taking care of them, and then now you're not well enough to do the job.
Correct. Definitely.
So make sure you're, like Brenda said, you're going for the walks, you're going for your doctor's appointments. You're making sure that you're eating healthy as well, because it could be hard. Like Brenda said, sometimes you may skip a meal. You may not even have a chance to eat. But again, you're going to have to carve out sometimes. If you have to pack your lunch and, already have it pre-made. If you're going to the doctor's appointment, already have it pre-made. We know that these individuals that you're caring for, they need you as advocates. Sometimes they need you as their voice, their ears. When they go to the doctor, they need people to speak up for them, because if the doctors and the nurses know that they sick, they ain't treat them a certain way. But when they come with somebody and they know somebody advocating for them, they listen. So it's important that you have your strength to do all of that.
And even before someone becomes a caregiver, just be in a prevention mood. If you know that someone in your family has a doctor's appointment, don't just let them go by themselves. I know COVID prevented us from doing that, going to visits with our relatives. But when you go with someone, then you don't have to ask them when they get back. So what did the doctor say? Because they're not going to tell you everything that the doctor said. So if you then ask your own questions and get the information that you need to help them manage their health before it gets to the point where they'll need a caregiver. Because I used to let my mother go to her doctor's appointments by herself until I found out that she's not telling me everything. So then I started going with her, and that's when I became more involved and realized that it was time for me to move her into my house and take care of her.
You said being a caregiver is hard, but being a patient is harder. What did you mean by that?
Yes. Being a patient, especially if you've been an independent person all your life, you never depended on anybody for anything, you worked all your life, God bless the child that has his own, and then you become ill, you can't drive any longer, the car is taken away from you. You're forgetful, you leave your debit card somewhere, or you can't find your money, you can't find your keys. That's really difficult because it's taken away your self-pride, your self-confidence. And dealing with that is hard for the patient. They don't really want to ask you for help. My mom didn't want to ask to move into my house, but she didn't have to ask because we were going to do it anyway. Even if she wanted to fight it, we still knew we had to do it because we couldn't let her be in an apartment by herself. So the things that they have to, as a patient, accept is really hard for them. It's hard for them to accept the fact they can't manage their own medication, or they can't cook anymore because they may leave the eye on and burn the place down. So it's hard when the doctor tells them to stop smoking and they can't because they've been addicted to it all their life. So just seeing them losing all of those faculties and not being able to do anything about it, that's when you know how hard it is for them. It's harder for them than it is for you as the caregiver.
Devastating. Lisa said, make sure that you take a notepad so that you can take notes or use your recorder on your phone to document the information from the doctor.
Wonderful. That's a great tip.
So important.
Because you will be overwhelmed. Yes.
All you hear probably the first couple of words that they say. Everything else is want.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, you get home, you're like, what happened? You be like, oh, well, they didn't say much. It was just a normal appointment.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Where was your faith, Brenda, in all of this that you were going through with your mom, having to step up in that caregiver's role and just watching your mom, this once strong, vibrant woman, now depending on you to take care of her, to do those things that she would normally do? Like, where was your faith in all of this?
My faith was squarely in front of me each and every day, because if it wasn't, I would not have been able to do it. I'm not a particularly religious person. I mean, I was baptized in the church, but as a kid, I love visiting all sorts of churches. So I'm more of a spiritual person. I believe in God and everything that goes along with him. I knew that she was going to transition. I didn't know when, but I also knew that it was because she had done everything she was supposed to do when he was bringing her home. And that would get rid of the pain that she was experiencing that no one could explain to me, because they said it was so excruciating that it was time for her to go. So I was happy when he decided to bring her home. I was mad as can be but I was happy that she was at peace.
Did you have a defining moment as a caregiver with your mom? I know there probably was many, but something that sticks out.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess that was when, before she got to the last days of her life, it was at, I think, Father's Day that year, that I went out because my husband was here, my sister was here, and they had some company. So I went out to the theater that evening, and I came back home, and my sister told me that she had gotten up out of the bed, and we had gotten this hospital bed, with the railings where you're not supposed to be able to get out of this bed, but she got out of the bed, and that was the last time that I saw her awake. And that was the day that she told me how much she really appreciated everything that I had done. And I just couldn't say anything, because to me, no matter what I did, it could never be enough, because I knew it was not going to keep her here. And after that, she never woke up again, and she actually passed on June 28th.
That's my birthday. Wow.
So she didn't even make it through the summer. We found out about it in the spring, in May, actually.
Wow.
And she couldn't make it through the chemo, and she passed June 28th.
Wow. Give some words of wisdom to somebody, Brenda, that may be going through, they may just found themselves in this caregiver's role, or they may be knee deep in it, and they may be feeling like they want to give up.
Don't give up. They need you. You are going to experience some very hard times, but keep the faith. You do have the strength. I pray that you have the support system that you need. Call on people, your best friends, people that you know that have gone through something similar, or illness or whatever, because they know you. They know, like they knew me, that I hadn't gone through anything like that. And I needed help, or else I was going to be crushed, because it was coming at me every kind of way. And just know that the person that you're taking care of really does appreciate it. But they're so ill sometimes that they can't tell you. But keep doing what you're doing, because it's going to be both appreciated by them and rewarding for you.
Well, I appreciate that you took the time out to love on your mom, to take care of your mom. And, because a lot of caregivers don't get that. A lot of caregivers don't hear it. So just know that you are appreciated. And it takes a strong person, with a set of skills to do something like that. It really does. So I appreciate you. Angela says, oh, wow. She said, that's exactly right. And above all things, trust God. There
Definitely.
you go. Trust God. Exactly.
Yes, ma'am.
So here are, Brenda, 10 tips, and you covered most of these, 10 tips for caregivers with a person that has cancer. And the first one, Brenda talked about this, was finding support. Number 2 is to read, listen, and ask questions. Number 3 is to be realistic and be organized. I know you said you was taking care of some of your mom's things. Number 4, you mentioned this one, take a break and recharge. Number 5 is stay in touch with friends and your community. Number 6 is make plans for the future. Number 7 is say yes to help. Number 8, stay healthy. Number 9, reduce stress. And number 10, set limits. Now, we didn't talk about the stress portion, but we know that stress is a silent killer, Brenda.
Yes.
Like, what were some of your things that you did to reduce that stress? Because it was a stressful situation, just dealing with the cancer portion of it. But when you add the dementia part in there, and then when you add the fact that my mom may not make it through this, and she's in pain, that's stressful in itself.
Definitely. I think some of the things that I did was my mother used to live like 5 minutes away from me, and my daughter and her family lives another 5 minutes away from me. So I would spend time with the grandchildren, and I had 3 grandchildren that were like young adults. One was already in college, and the other 2 were getting ready to go to college. And so we would play games. When my mother wasn't as ill, she loved playing Keno. So we would play Keno until we got to the point where she couldn't concentrate. She couldn't focus. She didn't know sometimes my sister, which was hard. So there were times when I just had to step out and cry and let it out because I couldn't hold it in any longer. When she said one day that, "Where's that lady that lived in the room over there?" I said, "What lady?" She said, "You know that lady." And then it dawned on me she was talking about my sister. She didn't recognize her. And that's when I just had to step out of the house, go out on the back porch and cry. And that relieved the stress. Everything just poured out of me that day. So sometimes you just got to let it go. Go get in your car and go drive to a parking lot and let it go. Because if you don't, it'll eat you up.
Yes, Lisa said, I mean, not Lisa, I'm sorry, Angela said stress is most definitely a silent killer. And then she also said that you are a winner.
Thank you.
Angela said you must cry. As a caretaker, you will explode. Really quick before we wrap up, Brenda, tell them what's coming up next for Brenda and how they can stay connected with you.
Okay. I have this Saturday coming up an event that's a Miss Senior Illinois America pageant that I'm a contestant in, and it's located at Northfield Square Mall in Bourbonnais, 2:00 on Saturday. So I'm competing with other individuals that are in the pageant for Illinois. I'm also participating in a mentoring program with the Speakers, Publishers, and Authors Association for 2 groups of students, one from 10 to 13 and the other one from 14 to 19. And in order for you to find out any more information on that, which I can send anyone who wants it, they can just go to my website, which is www.BrendaTucker-Jeffries.com, and let me know that they're interested, and I will send them the flyer. That's a program that happens once a month at the end of the month. In fact, it's happening now, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. It's an after-school program for students. So I'm involved in that, and next month I'll be involved in another mentoring program, but it's for girls only.
Awesome. Angela said that's fantastic, and Lisa said that's awesome. Thank you so much, Brenda, for coming on, being vulnerable to share your story, and just sharing your mother's legacy with us. I appreciate it. For all caregivers all over the world, you are appreciated.
Thank you for having me, and I really appreciate the opportunity. I had been asked to do this before from someone else. I couldn't do it. I wasn't ready. But when I saw your request, I knew I was ready.
Yes. Thank you so much. I enjoyed it. I know that the listeners are going to be blessed by your story. So thank you.
You're welcome. Have a great day.
Thank you so much. My closing sponsor is Gloria Dotson with Mary Kay. She's catering to all of your beauty needs from head to toe. You can go to marykay.com/GDOTSON. Join me next Monday at 6 p.m. right here on Intellectual Radio. I'll leave you with these words of wisdom. They may forget what you said, but they will never forget how you made them feel. As always, thank you for tuning in to Warriors Talk with author and founder Lady ReShell, where we are changing lives one warrior at a time.
Thank you for listening to this week's edition of Warriors Talk with Lady ReShell. To find out more about Warriors Talk, follow at Warriors Talk, the number 1, on all social media outlets, and Warriors Talk with Lady ReShell on YouTube. Please join us next week and every Monday evening at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time on IntellectualRadio.com for Warriors Talk with Lady ReShell, where we encourage, educate, and empower you into action.